meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, all board members are present with the exception of Mrs. Schroeder, who's excused. We'll move on to the minutes.
All right, I move that we approve the regular board meeting minutes of July 20th, 2015.
I second.
I have a motion for Mr. Cassell and a second for Mrs. Merrill. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
He guiding you on projecting?
Yes.
Moving on to good news of the district.
Pretty
Fall
quiet.
sports registration today.
Yeah, that was fun. Crazy.
Was it?
Yeah,
Just
it took
busy.
me 2 hours to get through the line, and then
Yeah, it took
I
me
had
like
I had to work later that day. It was crazy too.
it's like an hour and a half line. A lot of people, a lot of football players.
Yeah, I noticed some activity driving in tonight, so,
Is it 2-a-days yet?
oh, I'm sure.
In August they can't, because
No?
it's like rules. They can't
Too
touch
hot.
like
Oh, okay.
volleyball. They can't coach us at all.
They can. No.
Cool.
Should have something. I had something yesterday. I was thinking, oh yes, and now I can't. It's gone from my brain.
We're just enjoying our summer.
Yes.
That's what's coming.
That's the good news right there.
Yeah. All right, superintendent report.
Great. Well, we're gearing up for the beginning of the school year, and we start with our new teacher welcome breakfast that our Chamber of Commerce puts on next Monday at 7:30 at the VFW Hall, followed by our new teacher training where they'll come back to the district office and Mrs. Berryhill and her staff from HR kind of organize the day and get them all enculturated into our school system. So that's always kind of the official launch of the school year with staff. The next 2 days, the 25th and 26th, are actually building days, so various activities in the different buildings. Just to point maybe a special attention, if you're around on the Tuesday and Wednesday and would like to partake in some the Literacy Institute, all of our K-5 staff will be together at Sunrise Elementary, and they'll have breakout sessions by staff, but the majority of the time they're going to be with a nationally known, recognized speaker on literacy, Barb Golub, and in the Sunrise Gym, and then they'll break out into classrooms by school. So all of our elementaries will be at Sunrise during that time. Our secondary schools will be in their buildings. I know within that, the middle school has some breakouts by departments. The high school is doing kind of a technology institute, really preparing for the Google Apps platform rollout that Mr. Beals and his instructional technology staff are embarking on this fall. So that's those 2 days, and then we wrap it up on the 27th with our district day. It opens with an all-district staff breakfast created by our food services department, and then we move into Jeff Udick, who spoke at your board advance in April. He was also recently at our August advance with all of our leadership team, and he'll now speak to all of the staff, and would love for you to come and hear that on the 27th. He actually is speaking from, there'll be a welcome by Mrs. McGann and Mrs. Campbell, the Schools Foundation president, and then followed by Mr. Udick. So probably 8:45 to 10:30, 10:45 type time frame. I think you would really enjoy listening to him. I'd be curious about your feedback at our next board meeting. I think that could be something that how you were intrigued by his speech. So I think that would be a good thing for you to attend. And then September 1st, we start before Labor Day, so that's Tuesday, September 1st, and our staff, I think if they were to choose, their favorite rollout is a 3-4-5 rollout, where it's 3 days, 4 days, and then a 5-day work week, but we're going with the 4-4-5 offensive start to our school year. So we're excited about September 1st, so we'll have 4 solid days in, and then move into a Labor Day break and then move into another 4 days. So, and I was going to mention Hornet Days. The athletes did their registrations and things today, and then we'll move into regular Hornet Days. Is it tomorrow? The regular Hornet Days or
Thursday,
the Thursday, Friday?
Freshman orientation is tomorrow.
Got it. Yes, and so then Days of Thunder and Timberwolf Days occur at both of our middle schools, and that's when students get their, when they go to those days, they get their schedules, and there's all of a sudden the excitement really begins. So just launching the school year, we feel like we've had a productive summer. I've highlighted some of the things that we've done at our last board meeting, but hope you had a chance to, if you haven't, drive by Southwood on your way out and see the magic that Mr. Madden and his staff have done. It really looks pretty incredible. I had a patron drive by McDougal just last week and immediately called me and said, okay, whoever worked on Southwood did an amazing job. It looks like a brand new school, and it really, it does look sharp. So thank you, Mr. Madden, and for you and your crew.
Good, somebody else did it, I don't have those kinds of skills.
I think we may see that in the local vendors today, or is that next
Yeah,
month?
it'll be next month.
Next month, but Johnson Exteriors did the siding on the gym. So with that, concludes my report.
Thank you. So we will move on to the public hearing of our 2015-16 budget.
Okay, I have a number of slides that I'll go through pretty quickly. I know as a board you've had the opportunity to look at the documents that I've sent to you. And the budget has also been available to the public for this last month. We advertised it as the law requires. And so tonight will be a public hearing. I have about 13 or 14 slides that I'll go through. Stop me along the way if you have questions. That was the title page. As you know, and again, most of this is for the public's benefit and any new, possibly student board members we have. But there are five funds that make up the, 5 separate funds that make up the budget. The general fund, which is the largest one, of course, that I report on, and the most interested, not the others that I'm certainly interested in all of them, but that is our general fund operating budget that covers majority of what we do through the school district. The ASB, the fund accounts for student extracurricular activities in each of the schools. That exists actually in all the schools. It's the most active and largest, of course, at the high school because of the size and number of students. It's supported by fees from students, and then you can see the other information. It's under the control of the board, but it's important to note that each school has a student body, that the students actually are the ones that govern that with their advisor. Capital Projects Fund, which miraculously expanded this last month for us, that provides for land or buildings, major modernization of buildings, other properties such as fields, acquisition of equipment, technology, which you know we utilize those as well, and our technology as a result of our technology levy. It can be used for energy upgrades, etc. Of course, the majority of ours is going to be for our upcoming building projects, and I'll share what that budget is for the year. Oh, I have capital projects on there twice. So, Transportation Vehicle Fund accounts for the purchase of major repair of pupil transportation equipment, and actually really what we utilize it for is the purchase of our buses that we acquire every year through the depreciation schedule. And hopefully I have the 5th one on here instead of a repeat of the capital projects. But we don't. Who knows? This is a test.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Debt service.
Yes.
Debt service fund. And that,
It's the
I
most
apologize.
exciting one, and we've all
Yeah,
forgotten.
it is. Yeah, I apologize. I didn't have that on there. But the debt service is how we pay back our long-term debt. And that is structured, that'll help in paying back the bonds. So that's the 5th of the funds. A breakdown of our general fund, I'll just have a couple of graphs to go through to show you. This is the revenue side, and a majority of our revenue comes from the state. And the different categories are the state general purpose, state special service, which supports special education, etc. Federal special purpose for some of our title compensatory programs. And then local taxes, of course, for their maintenance operations levy, and then other local tax support like fees and those kinds of things. So as a breakdown of that, our anticipated revenue for the year is about $46.5 million. Our anticipated expenditures is over $50 million this year. Now, I know that the board is aware, but for the public that goes, oh, they don't have enough money to meet the expenditures. A couple things, of course, we're going to be carrying over revenue from this previous year, but more importantly, we build capacity within our expenditure budget in order to possibly, if we need to expend funds. And we have significant capacity built in there this year. What I'll be showing on paper on the budget, a deficit of about $3.5 million. We've never come anywhere close to the deficit. We will, for the first time this year, dip a little bit into the reserve, but that was intentional on our part as we've looked at the fund balance that we have. So our anticipated revenue, in the event that all of this was true, again, a budget is a guide, we would end up with about $3.1 million in our reserve, which is, again, it's over the 5%, which we hope for. On the expenditure side, 55.3% of our budget is spent on basic education, and then you can see the breakdown of the other specialized programs that we have throughout the district. And just in case you forgot, I put this on here again. Any questions up to this point? Okay, our ending fund balance for this year, we anticipate it to be approximately 6.7 million. And again, as we've really been very fortunate to be able, through not just on my part, but really a collective effort of everyone to collaborate on the budget, we've been able to maintain stability, responsible spending, and then it really puts us in a good place again to begin the fiscal year with adequate reserves. Little history. You can see that we're going way back. At some point, we were over 5,000 students. We've declined a bit through the years, anticipating, and again, I've been conservative in my projections, so we projected about 3,700 students, but it's interesting, we've been meeting with the city and looking at the potential growth that's going to happen. I think we're really going to be plateauing out. I think that we'll probably see more than that comes in, but again, we
hope so.
do that conservative.
Don't want it to be less than last year.
Here's a breakdown of our revenues, just comparing previous year to this year. The McCleary decision has had an impact in a positive way on school districts across the state. Sounds like they're still working out some of those details at the state level, but we're grateful for that and thankful as we continue to try and move forward fiscally. And then again, a comparison of expenditures, increase of expenditures of about 2.7 million. A lot of that, 80 to 85% is in our salaries in a given budget. Okay, and then the other funds, just a real quick breakdown of ASB. We anticipate the beginning fund balance to be about $356,000, and that is a combination of high school, 2 middle schools, and all that we have in each of the schools as well. And ending the year at $371,842. Debt service fund, in case I didn't say what it was before, it is taxes collected by the county that are deposited into this fund for our local taxpayers. Payments are made for outstanding bonds approved by the voters, which we just did last April. And then also payments are made for outstanding bonds obligated or outstanding debt for non-voter debt. We currently don't have any of that, but we have in the past. I think an example would be an energy grant that we had some years ago, and I think also we front-funded some for some building that happened at EMS. I believe I wasn't here during that time. We did that. And here's a picture of the debt service fund showing local property tax revenue and an ending fund balance in the positive, which is good. Okay, capital projects, it pays for school construction, school remodeling, building system upgrade, project management, facilities planning. And here is, we're not building the Eiffel Tower, but, thank you. Beginning fund balance of 60, I've never seen such a huge beginning fund balance, it's really exciting, $67,187,123. Budgeted expenditures, we built 14 million. I will say that we're probably going to have to come back and do a budget extension somewhere during the school year from capital projects as we get into the expenses. So at the time, we didn't really know what that cash flow would be. There were some estimates, but that's, we'll deal with that as we need to. And transportation vehicle fund, as I indicated, that is for the purchase of buses. And that is the picture of the revenues and the expenditures and the ending fund balance for the year. And that represents the public hearing. Are there any questions that I can answer for you?
In the bus transportation fund, are we kind of keeping an even pace with our bus needs and the amount that we're getting back, or are we kind of gradually getting a little
There was a point
behind?
when it's going to start to tip the other way. And so, yes, we're going to have to look at, we have more buses going, we will have more buses going off the depreciation schedule than we're getting for the revenue, so.
And it's okay kind of right now because our enrollment is a little down, but really still needs just as many buses almost because you're traveling the same distances.
Right.
Well, and as the Black Diamond construction comes out and the kids are bussed across, will we have to rent buses to
No.
accommodate that, or will we be okay? Or we don't know yet?
Well, actually, our buses go from the southernmost point in our district and take the Black Diamond kids and then have to come all the way back and store their buses. So it's
So-
just going to
Something
have
different.
the kids from Black Diamond on the bus a little bit longer that
Okay.
are going to JJ. But the bus route is virtually the same, other than instead of stopping at Black Diamond Elementary, they're stopping at JJ.
Okay.
They come back this way
They still have to,
anyways.
just because of where
Okay.
our transportation
Cool.
department is.
Okay.
That makes sense.
But as we grow,
Yeah.
it's determined in terms of our allocations and such, that plays into revenue for buses as well.
But Mrs. Merrill asked a great question because we did not believe, I think the bus levy was in 2001.
I think there was one in 1990 something.
But
too.
the last one with, it was before Mr. Madden had come into the district. Mrs. Alderson was in the business office. We did not believe it would ever in a million years be able to last us until 2015, which is a combination of lots of different people working together and a little bit of decrease in our enrollment, help, number
Yeah.
of fleet we have, things like that. But when that passed, we thought maybe 7, 8, even 10 years out, but I believe we're at year 14 from our last transportation levy.
I think right as I came in, that levy was going off, the bus levy,
You came in,
2002.
yeah. It was a 2-year levy, and I want to say maybe it was 2000
Yeah.
or 2001.
But I'll just make a comment too, and before with regard to that, it's not a big deal, but it makes a difference. We normally got that allocation earlier in the year, and we don't get it now until the end of the year, which is less interest that we get, so the state gets that interest. That was just a comment.
Yeah. Sneaky.
We're watching closely as Mr. Madden mentioned, what could impact this, even possibly this year, is, the Supreme Court decision last week to fine, a daily fine on our legislators about that. How that could impact school districts, I don't know. We're in uncharted territories, as many people have mentioned on the news about that one, so we're watching that closely. As Mr. Madden stated, how it could impact our budget is enrollment. Some of the new houses and hearing from office managers, it sure feels like things are percolating in our buildings. It always percolates in our buildings in August in terms of new enrollees. But our hope is maybe the new enrollees and the ones that are already here maybe hadn't left. And so sometimes there's a wash there. So we're hoping that that might show some increase. We're also aware that, a private school in Enumclaw has closed down. Therefore, the students, we have some of those students we know are entering our offices and asking to be registered. It's not many students, and many of them were not from our school district, but we do have some that are entering our school. So even if you put all those together, they may add up into, 20 to 50 kids. So, which could really make a difference in your overall enrollment to show more of a incline rather than a decline.
Yes, I've been asking, as I know you're aware too, asking around the buildings, and yes, we are getting, as a result of the closure of private school locally, we are getting some students, so it's good. I think it's important to note too, and I made a comment about the state, they are funding full-day kindergarten in all of our buildings except one, and so that is really a great thing, so we appreciate that, and that's going to be a big help to us instructionally as well as fiscally.
So those are the impacts that could change the budget even after today in terms of amounts.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. So the budget was reviewed on July 20th at our board meeting. The district is required to hold a public hearing prior to taking action on the budget. The process for this public budget hearing is anyone who wishes to address the board regarding the 2015-16 budget, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. I will call for public comments 3 times to allow for anyone to make a comment. And after asking for the public response 3 times, the public hearing will be closed. So, would anyone like to address the board about the public hearing about the budget? Is anyone here to address the board about the 2015-2016 budget? Is anyone here who would like to address the board about the 2015-16 budget? Okay, seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. Moving on to section 3, hearing of persons desiring to address the board as a whole. If you're here to address the board as a whole, there's a white card in the back. Please fill it out and bring it up to Mrs. Abbey. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board as a whole? Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to payroll and vouchers.
Okay, our top 10 expenditures for the month of July. Green River Community College, $149,527. That's for spring running start. Advanced ACT, as we know, Advanced Classroom Technology, $52,176. That's for sound systems in 2 of our buildings, Mr. Beals? Yeah. And Overlake Medical Center, Student Support Services, $49,159. I think that represents actually a couple months. RFI Communications, security cameras. We now have cameras, will have, if not, in all of our schools. The effort this summer was at the elementary schools. And also to add some additions at Thunder Mountain EMS and I believe one at the high school. Scholastic Incorporated curriculum, so RFI was $43,184 if I didn't say that. Scholastic $42,549. Zones Incorporated, that sounds really techy, and it is. That is $34,159. Mr. Beals, I'm going to let you.
Sure.
It's most appropriate for you to.
That represents the purchase of our first round of Chromebooks that will be placed in connected classroom teachers' hands as well as our building instructional technology facilitators' hands. So these are the staff members who will be hosting and facilitating our student devices come mid-year. So this is the first round of those devices.
Thank you. Puget Sound Energy for our energy use, $23,976. KCDA, which provides school supplies for a number of our buildings, $22,461. City of Enumclaw for natural gas and water, $20,884. And Walter E. Nelson, custodial supplies across a number of the buildings, $20,119. And our local vendors for $20,006. Art Gamlin Motors, Compassion Physical Therapy, Enumclaw Stationers, Enumclaw Music, Foothills Auto Supply, Gateway True Value Hardware, Kelly's Mercantile, The Sequel Bookstore, Wheeler Construction, QFC, O'Reilly Automotive, and Sears, which rounds out for the month of July. So I would ask for your approval. Payroll and vouchers.
Quick question.
Yes.
Just popped into my head about auto supplies, and we now have 3 auto supply stores in Enumclaw. It's amazing, but
And they're really close to each other.
they are. And so my question is, how do we do that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's actually a question for our auto shop teacher.
Curious. I don't know.
You have a comment on that, Mr. Nelson?
No, but it's not unlike, Safeway, QFC.
Yeah.
It depends on the supplies that you need and
That's true.
Yeah.
and local
And-
connections.
And one of them, it depends on the ease of doing business with them as well. So not all places take purchase orders, for
Yeah.
example.
Okay.
So see how that works out.
I kind of like Foothills Auto Supply, so. It's nice that they're here and we're
Yeah.
doing business with them, so.
Well, as I've said publicly before, we appreciate the businesses and want to support them all as much as we can.
Thank you.
I'd move to approve payroll and vouchers as presented.
A second?
I have a motion from Mr. Stanwood and a second from Mr. Cassell. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda. We have a part-time, temporary, and substitute personnel, attendance officers 2015-16, and a personnel report.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
A second?
I have a motion from Mrs. Merrill and a second from Mr. Cassell. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second reading, Mr. Nelson.
We have second reading of six policies. Policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences. Policy 3421, child abuse and neglect. Policy 3422, student sports. Policy 6114, gifts. Policy 6220, purchasing bid requirements. And Policy 6512, infection control program. We discussed these at our last meeting. I believe there was only one correction on one policy, Mrs. Merrill, that you made. Other than that, I've heard from no one, and we would seek your approval.
I move that we approve the second reading of policy 3122, 3421, 3422, 6114, 6220, 6512 as presented.
And second.
I have a motion for Mrs. Merrill and a second for Mr. Stanwood. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1029.
Well, we're excited to bring the budget to you for official approval tonight. Mr. Madden, thank you for you and your staff for doing such a great job and working with HR and the connectedness and bringing this forward to the board.
Move that we approve Resolution 1029, budget 2015-2016 budget adoption as presented.
A second?
I have a motion for Mr. Cassell and a second for Mrs. Merrill. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1030.
I'm going to let Mr. Madden, actually resolution, the next two items on your agenda, I think he can explain to the public in one connection. It has to do with the building and the construction that's taking place and the forms that we're required to fill out for the state. So, Mr. Madden.
Yes, and it's really appropriate that Mr. Rumbaugh is here as well. He didn't know I was going to call on him. But we're embarking on the going through the D forms. And the D forms are the forms that are required when you participate in the state program for funding for construction, you have forms that you have to submit. And we are at D3, and I always say there are a dozen, but there are how many forms?
I think D11, yeah.
Okay, pretty close to a dozen. So what these forms are basically say the building that we're doing, let's take Black Diamond for example, once we're going to demolish that, we're not going to use it again, and obviously that square footage will not be eligible for state funding, as well as for the following resolution, for the high school, that area as well. We're saying that we're going to not use it anymore and/or demolish it. And so that takes it off of any eligibility. Is that a fairly good explanation? Yeah.
So instead of a modernization, it's more.
Yeah, instead of a modernization,
It's a
we're
replacement.
redoing it. So all of that identified square footage in each one of those, that's what that indicates. That's the statement that we're doing now. So that submitted, and then D4 comes, these are part of D3, and then D4 is the official approval of the project, I believe is probably the way to say it. So that will be coming sometime in the fall.
And for the high school, it's just the areas that we anticipate replacing, right? We're not, just so for the public, we're not completely redoing the whole thing.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you for clarifying that. Yes, just the area that we're redoing.
So we'd seek your approval on both of those resolutions separately.
Move that we approve Resolution 1030, new in lieu of replacement option for Black Diamond Elementary.
Second.
I have a motion for Mr. Cassell and a second for Mr. Stanwood. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I'll-
Resolution 1031.
I'll move to adopt Resolution 1031, new in lieu replacement option for Enumclaw High School.
A second.
I have a motion for Mr. Stanwood and a second for Mr. Cassell. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Resolution 1032.
My computer froze, so this one is interlocal agreement with the Tacoma School District.
Me,
Thank you.
sorry.
That's where it froze
For
on.
copy
Sorry.
machines. So we're piggybacking on the pricing that they had, and that allows us to get their price for the copiers. We're replacing a number of copiers at our schools. The 5-year lease is up, and so we're proceeding with that.
I move that we approve Resolution 1032, interlocal agreement with the Tacoma School District.
Second.
I have a motion for Mrs. Merrill and a second for Mr. Cassell. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Highly Capable Grant Plan 2015-16.
The highly capable report plan requires that you go to board action before Mrs. Marquand can push send on the application that's due to the state. So I thought it was appropriate because Mrs. Marquand is new in her position and she would like to introduce her guest tonight to share just a little bit of information, but it's really a requirement to approve it before pushing go on the application that's required at the state. It's one of the only ones that won't even let you push go until you have the board date inserted into the right.
Exactly, I
Box.
have to upload the board agenda and, but this is April Drake. She is our new highly capable teacher, and I don't know how much you know about the plan as it's changing, but one of the big changes is that April will be full-time. 3 days a week, she will be doing the pull-out program with our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders across the district. But she also has time built into her schedule to work with every building and work on the differentiation that needs to happen for kindergarten through 2nd grade in their buildings. She's got some fun things working with the middle schools, perhaps a math Olympiad you're working, and our responsibility is to serve our highly capable students in those areas that they qualify in. So she'll even be working with high school and making sure that kids are slotted into the right classes and taking the right courses that fit their highly capable needs. And April has some experience in that from another state, and we're really happy to have her on board. She helped create and write the plan. So we're excited about really expanding our services a little bit with a combination of consultative services with teachers and differentiation, and some push into some of our schools, and then some pull out for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. So that's the nutshell.
And I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Lots of work, but I think it's going to be awesome.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
District.
Where are you coming from?
This will be my 2nd year in Enumclaw.
Okay.
But I'm from North Carolina.
Okay, cool.
You can't tell.
I
Try
heard
not to
I
say
heard a
all
little
too much.
I heard a little something in it.
Thank you.
I move that we approve the highly capable grant plan 2015-16.
Second?
I have a motion for Mrs. Merrill and a second for Mr. Cassell. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2015-16 facilities fee schedule, the auditorium at Pete's Stadium.
Mr. Madden.
We separated those out for a couple reasons. One, Pete's Stadium, as you know, we've been renting that out and we've been setting aside a reserve for replacement of that. And one of the things that we've done every year is look at other districts and seeing what they're charging. We want to make sure we're within that range. So this, there's a slight increase in the practice use of Pete's Stadium. It's equal to or still a little bit less than our surrounding districts, so we're in that ballpark. But I will note, and when I make the general fund report, we're about almost 90% of, if we were to replace the turf now, we're way ahead of schedule in terms of
Good.
10-year cycle. We have about $350,000 set aside, so but we're still moving forward with that. And then the auditorium fee, in working with Mr. Miller, had made a suggestion as far as how we structure that. There are separate costs that were associated with its use, and what this fee schedule represents is really a consolidated amount. And so if you were to look at what's charged this coming year compared to last year, it looks like it's a whole lot more, but really there are costs that were connected last year that weren't reflected in the actual fee schedule. Custodial fees, technician fees, so it's all consolidated into one. And it's really not an increase in much of it, it's a slight increase, I believe, is that right? Yeah. So, to our users, so that's how that represents that.
Move that we approve the 2015-2016 facilities fee schedule for the auditorium in Pete's Stadium.
Second.
I have a motion for Mr. Cassell and a second for Mr. Stanwood. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. General fund report.
Do you mind going back? Is there a way to do that here? We have, after this month, one more month for the fiscal year. But here's a report for July, end of July. We started the fiscal year on September 1st with about $7.5 million in fund balance. Our revenues have been 38.9, and our total resources giving us about $46.4 million. Our expenditures to date are $39,205,211.39, and our reserve accounts have not changed much as we look at our grant carryover, our commodities, our 5% emergency fund, and then, as I mentioned earlier, our capital project, assigned to capital projects for our turf replacement, giving us an unreserved fund balance of $4.3 million approximately. We have received 90.66% of our budget. That was, 90.79, forecast 90.66 at this time. And as you can see on the expenditure side as well, our forecast compared to what we actually have done shows our stability as well, as we've done a good job of planning and spending throughout the year. Each month, I'm not sure what else to comment on, so I'll just let the picture show itself. The only time I would comment if there were any drastic changes.
Close to the finish line.
Okay, any questions? Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Nelson, are we in need of an executive session?
We are in need of an executive session for discussion with legal counsel over possible litigation. No action taken, 30 minutes.
Okay, so let's do a 10-minute break.
Yes.
So we will go into executive session at 7:20, coming out at 7:50 with no action taken.
Okay.
Okay.